Hello and welcome to Metro AVTechTips. I'm Brent.
I'm Adam.
And it's Wednesday.
My dudes.
Dudes? Dudes?
You're old, you don't get it. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to today's episode.
Thank you.
That's a good opening, right?
I tell you what, I'm just gonna go ahead and lay down and you can kick me and get it over with.
Anyways, moving on from that, everybody, thank you for joining us today on today's episode. I'm looking forward to today's episode a little bit.
Well, and it's funny because we've already started today's episode.
We've already talked about it a little bit, kind of here in the background.
And, there's legitimately so much you guys don't see that happens before that we thoroughly enjoy, and one of these days we'll do a podcast about it.
Well, and honestly, this is one of those things where what you see on camera for us, this is actually our interaction. This is how we actually interact.
Except that we do have to narrow the vocabulary a little.
Sure, yeah, and the topics a little bit. But anyways, all that to say.
And speaking of topics, before we get into the usual, go through your opening spiel.
Yes, like, share, subscribe, hit the little bell notification, let you know whenever we do go live, which of course is, pardon me, every Wednesday at 3 p.m. and every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time.
I'm going to turn mine down now since you just did that.
I should have done that to start with.
I left my phone in my office. So.
But with that, also everybody, thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions about whatever it is that we're talking about today, or comments or whatever else, please leave it over in the chat section over on the side. Again, I have not looked into Facebook to find out, you know what, I should just look at it.
Okay, well, that's well and good. But, so
yeah.
Everybody knows today will be a slightly abbreviated episode, because I have to get to the airport by 4:20 for a 5:20 flight to Jersey. And the reason I'm going to Jersey is...
for that.
The UST Ultra Short Throw Showcase Shootout.
Yes.
Which will be in Pumpton Lakes at projectorscreen.com building on Friday.
Yes.
We're providing the connectivity and the setup and make sure everything's ready for the show.
Yep.
So I fly out to do that tomorrow. Please, anybody up in that area, this is open. You're welcome to come join us. Come say hello. Say that you're a fan of ours. Bring money, bring gifts, bring alcohol. We appreciate it all. And on that note, Adam, let's get back to today's topic.
Okay. So, everyone, thank you again for joining us. If you, it turns out it is on that side. It's on the same side as
okay, well, that's
YouTube.
Convenient. Oh, I see it.
Yeah, see, got it right there. Anyways, everybody, yeah, go ahead and leave your comments, leave your suggestions, leave your questions, leave whatever else it is, even if it has nothing to do with whatever it is that we're talking about today. Go ahead and leave that over in the chat section. We'd love to talk about whatever you want to talk about, and that helps us know what to talk about. Also, if you are watching...
What are we talking about?
Yeah, if you are watching on Facebook, let me know that you're watching on Facebook. I really need to know that stuff, because that is really helpful to me to let the management know.
Powers that be.
The powers that be, let them know that it is actually working on that side, because I would like to continue to do that. And in fact, I would like to try to get this on multiple platforms.
A little bit more with Instagram and Pictogram and
LinkedIn and a couple other,
and Telegram.
Yeah, why not, right?
There's lots of grams I don't understand.
Yeah, sure. So, everybody, we'll do that. Now, Brent, today's episode is kind of an interesting one. Well,
and again, just based on our pre-show discussions, I think so.
Yeah.
Because I got some questions for you. So jump right in it, and I'm going to step back and let you start your narration. I'm going to try to put you on the spot.
Let me stumble my way through it. So why don't we see more 60 frames per second movies? That's the title of today's episode.
I'm going to throw economics out of there right at the beginning, because that's a lot of hard drive storage because of digital recording.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's big, giant. Now, I have been claiming for the past 3 or 4 years, however long there's only one movie. It turns out there's two.
There is two.
Now, do you know how long the second one's been out?
Okay, so what he's referring to is we've got, there's not really any media out there that is, or pardon me, movies that are out there that are 60 frames per second. There's, for the longest time, we were assuming that it was just the one, the Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk.
Which, if you haven't seen it, okay.
Yeah. There's a second one, actually, Gemini Man, and I completely missed this one. I actually found it looking up information about today's episode, and that's kind of where I found that part of it.
That's the Will Smith one.
Yes, that's the Will Smith one. It came out, I don't know, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago or something like that.
Nobody's mentioned that to us.
No, but it's the movie's okay. I mean, it's
got to be better than Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk.
Well, it's got Will Smith in it, so it's already a little bit better anyways.
Bigger budget.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are looking for a way to kind of demo a system for a client when you're needing to show off like the 60 frames per second, both of those movies are out there and they're available. You can find other content, other media,
YouTube.
things, YouTube. In fact, this live stream is in 60 frames per second.
Is it?
Yes.
But it's not 4K 60.
No, it's 180.
Okay.
Or 180. 1080. Woo, we're getting there. Okay.
So we're ultra low resolution.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's your favorite movie, which I think is now available in 60 frames per second. The bunny one.
The bunny one, yeah.
Come on.
Buck the Bunny. Buck the Bunny? Bunny? I don't remember which one it is.
You see?
It's been forever since I talked about it. But anyways, yeah. That well, and that was the one. It's an
He'll
open
add
source.
that information
Yes.
underneath the...
That's actually the open source one where they give you the render file for it, and you can re-render it in whatever format you want out of it, because then it's the same movie in all of these different resolutions, so that you can showcase, okay, here's what your system looks like at 1080p versus here's what it looks at 4K or 8K or 10K. You just have to be able to render it yourself in order to do that, and you can, or you can hire somebody to do it, or luckily, if you keep looking for it, the files are usually already uploaded onto their website.
Somebody's already done the work for you.
Correct, yeah.
That's got to be a big file at 4K 60.
Yeah.
I think it was Buck the Bunny.
No, it's Big Buck Bunny. That's what it is. Big Buck Bunny. Yep. So go and check that one out. That one is available, I believe. Yep, there's a 60 frames per second 4K version of it. It's the official Blender Foundation short. So Blender is a open source rendering program to do 3D renders and stuff.
One of the things we do encourage you to do is to get a hard drive, not a hard drive, a thumb drive.
Yeah.
And put varying versions of this movie on it, because let's face it, you all go out to a job site.
Yep.
And you always need content for testing because your client doesn't have it, or what they have is not suitable for the testing purposes.
Yes. And have different resolutions, have 1080p, have 4K, have, nowadays we've got 8K with 8K televisions that do play media off of those devices, and so you can do that option as well.
The advantage of doing it on the thumb drive versus streaming is it's less compressed.
Yes.
So you can actually test the system a little better. At least up to 4K, we use the Mi Box.
Yeah.
Or My Box.
Yeah.
Which one is it?
Mi Box.
Mi Box.
Yep, Mi Box.
Which is a $70 little media player. We encourage you to have one in your kit. Do you have one on the rack? They're all...
I think, well,
I saw a bunch of them earlier.
I've stripped the rack a little bit to find, we're doing some work in here.
You can't tell it because it's a mess.
Pardon me.
But the Mi Box, My Box, is a great little device to carry with you to have the ability to show content or test a system.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's get on to today's topic.
Yes. So today's topic is specifically about why don't we see more 60 frames per second movies. Now,
I still come back to economics.
The economics are one big part of it, but mostly it comes into history, and also because the humanity as a whole are creatures of habit, and if there's no need to change certain things, we're probably not going to.
The classic, I want it better, but don't change it.
Right. Right. So basically the way that it comes down to is that we have found in history, and again, I'm not going to quote names or dates or anything like that because I'm probably going to get it wrong, but there was a scientist that basically learned and figured out the fact that if you can take a still image and multiple still images and change them out at roughly 24 frames per second, it's actually 23.97. If you change them out that quickly, that's the minimum speed to change out those frames.
For it to look real.
For it to look like there's actual motion. And that's that perception of motion. That's the actual term for it. For, a still image looking like it's moving.
And it is all still images, whether it's film or digital.
Yeah, it's a frame. You get one frame of a picture. And if there's a change in one frame to the next frame, at 24 frames per second, it looks like there's a change. It looks like something is actually moving in that case. Right. Now, in this one, for instance, again, our video here, we're at 60 frames per second. Michael, did you send us stuff or did you send it to Brent? Did he send you something?
When?
I don't know.
That's quite probable he did. So, back to the frame rates.
The Ang Lee movie was shot in 120 frames per second, but mostly distributed at 60.
Oh, that had to be a big file.
That's
the Hulk. No, that was the Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, was the Ang Lee one.
That's that one. Okay.
That's that one.
Okay.
Which the technicality of it was excellent.
So that kind of goes into what we were talking about before the episode. So we were talking about oversampling. Oversampling.
Yeah.
When it comes to like CDs and stuff, and whatnot
video.
before and video, about the fact that if you oversample something and then you pull from the information, sent it earlier and just recent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. At what point is it redundant numbers? And we were talking.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing started off with rods and cones.
Yeah. So we started talking about rods and cones before the show.
How do you see?
Trying to figure out, how you see and whatnot. And the question came out: which one is it? Is it rods for color and cones for light or for dark viewing, or reverse that? It's reverse that. It's cones are for color and rods are for low light.
But then you pulled up the picture.
I pulled up the picture. Should I show the picture?
And we have to look into this honestly more. But looking at the video,
it's actually kind of cool.
I'm thinking that these, his question was, do these effectively they're veins? They're like little flaps.
Yeah.
And I think that they move with the light wave because color is light waves.
Yeah. I'll have to, and again, we literally just looked at this, like within.
Turn us a little sideways in what we were doing.
Yeah, it really did. So if we do this here and do this, there you go. Okay, so the rods and cones, we saw like the little discs that are on them. And this is, again, literally like minutes before we went live on this. We pulled this up. It looks like
V-A-N-E-S, not V-E-I-N-S.
Yeah, correct. And the cool thing about those is the question that arose up, because we had to do some more research on it to find out for sure, but essentially the light is hitting those, and is that actually making them vibrate?
And I think it does. I think that's how it gets the information.
We'll have to look into it a little bit more to find out for sure.
Because color is all about frequency.
Yeah. So the other part of this also, on top of this, is the fact that 60 frames per second, 30 frames per second, 120,
29.97.
Sure, 120 frames per second, those are all possible frame rates, right? Mm-hmm. And we know that because we have done videos in those frame rates, and especially if you're a gamer, higher frame rates are usually what you're looking for.
Smoother motion.
Correct. And so we know that it's there, we know that it's possible, but why is it weird? It's kind of the question, and why don't we, actually, pardon me, the question is, why don't we see more 60 frames per second movies?
I'm still standing with my first answer.
I would agree with you on that to a certain extent, but it hasn't been, because we have been able to have more frames at lower resolutions and not take up as much space.
Well, and people are reasonably happy with more frames or that resolution.
But they get what they notice is that they get like a weird, you would almost call it the soap opera effect, where it looks unnatural, like something just
and
isn't
higher bandwidth,
right.
And higher refresh rates.
Higher refresh rates. And so one of the things that people are noticing about that is the fact that when they're seeing 60 frames per second, Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, or
which
now
we still
Gemini
have to
Man,
see because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, Gemini Man. So when you watch that, though, it looks weird. It
feels uncomfortable.
It feels uncomfortable because why does it look off like that? And it's almost like an uncanny valley thing, where we know that it's perfectly fine. We know that it's actually doing that, and in most cases, what should be happening is the 60 frames per second is what the camera is actually picking up, or in the Ang Lee movie, at 120 frames per second. In that case, where it's oversampling it. But when you pull that information out of it and you look at the 60 frames per second, it's not like interpolating frames in the middle, right? Which in some cases there's programs out there that will take, for instance, a 30 frame and up it to 60 frames, but all it does is it does the in between frame. It creates a frame. Yeah, it's guessing, but it still looks weird. I'm sticking to the fact that we're just a creature of habit. We are used to the 24 frames per second movies. We have watched those from our very first movie that we went to the movie theaters in, and that's what we've seen up till this point now.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Number one.
That's kind of it, yeah.
And just because it's better doesn't mean it's better.
Right.
I mean, let's face it, how many people stay married or hang with the political party or drive the same car because they're comfortable with what it is? Mm-hmm. It may not be what they actually want, but they don't know they want something different. They're afraid to change.
Yeah. So,
poor woman was married to me for 32 years. You'd think that she'd have wised up.
Yeah. And actually, Michael, you make a good point about this. Your comments about its creative intent. That's honestly really what it comes down to, because you can have The creative intent really comes down to what the director is looking for out of it. For instance, a really famous thing now is Spider-Man, the one with Miles Morales, the cartoon one with Sony.
Multiverse.
Spider-Man Multiverse. Or, is that what it is?
Is it Into the Multiverse or?
That's what it is.
It's the animation one.
Yes. So the cool thing about that one, they use frame rate specifically to show his lack of skill. So the spoiler alerts if you haven't seen it yet, I guess.
And I haven't. So you're spoiling.
Well, the experience
for me.
You're in the line of fire then at this point, so you're kind of where we're at. The other person there that is much more skilled as to what's happening.
You mean savvy to the world?
Sure. Yeah. Now granted that's already. You should already know that part because that's in the previews anyways. But the older Spider-Man, he already knows how to be Spider-Man, and so he's actually at the 24 frames per second frame rate, or actually I think it is 24. And is it?
I think it's 30.
Pardon me. But he's at that frame rate, whereas Miles Morales is actually at a lower frame rate, so he looks a little bit more choppy, just a little bit more choppy.
Not as fluid.
Not as fluid. Until the very end when he then,
blossoms.
accepts his abilities and his powers and stuff. And so, yes, creative intent is a really important factor when it comes to that. I'm sure Ang Lee, that movie wasn't only because somebody was trying to showcase technology. I'm sure that he wanted to be able to actually show something maybe as a...
Test bed?
As well, maybe something as authentic as real life. Maybe that's something that he was going for.
And part of the problem and the complaint is it's almost hyper realistic.
Yes. Give me one quick second.
He's dying over there, so he's going to go get a cough drop. But while he's doing that, I'm going to do quick down here. Yes. New messages. And a lot of new messages. I see that, Michael. Sorry, I did not catch it earlier today. And multiverse, yep. Oh. I do remember that. Yes, Michael. The smeared and the Vaseline and the hoses and shooting through hosiery to give more of an ethereal feel to it. Michael was talking about back in the 70s.
Right.
They would shoot certain video through either nylon pantyhose or put Vaseline on the lenses to soften it.
I'm just saying, I came into that conversation midway through, and I missed out on a lot of context.
Now, kind of along that note, in the early days of LCD projectors, because the cell structures was much larger than it is now, what they would do is you would buy a lens that was a laser cut etched lens that had a grid pattern on it, and you would take the lens and put it about 45 degrees out of sync with the pixels. And it would actually soften the edges, so you didn't see the pixel structure on the screen.
Sure. I mean, that kind of comes into play also with like old video games. Like the old Sonic the Hedgehog video games. When you play those on like a CRT versus an LED with pixels and stuff,
you see a lot more.
It doesn't. The defined edges of the newer TVs, it looks wrong versus like a CRT.
Well, first off, you were looking at a 27 to 32 inch if you had a big TV.
Oh, no. 18 inch. I was looking at something like that.
Normal folks were looking at 27 to 32.
Oh, people with money.
Yes. People that did not live in the upper New York State area.
Yeah, exactly. So,
the ones that had color.
Yeah.
And had indoor plumbing.
I had indoor plumbing.
It was a pot.
But it was indoor.
It was indoor. But yes, and part of the complaint when you look at the old video games is like they just look terrible. And on the old TVs they didn't. Well, why? Well, first off, you were interlaced. So the comb filters took some of that out. Secondly, they were a lot smaller.
Yeah.
A lot smaller, as you mentioned, 18 inches.
Crunched
or
in
13,
there.
And they may even be black and white. So, and it softened everything up so you did not see the failure.
Right.
Part of the problem with the technology we have now is if the content is inferior, it becomes very obvious the content is inferior.
So, Michael, I'm going back through the comments now to look at it a little bit closer. You were talking about the 24 frames per second is said to be the most consistent rate at which camera people could crank the cameras, which makes sense because if you go back and you look at like surveillance cameras that are set to like 10 or less frames per second, you can still get no, because it still looks choppy.
Yeah,
it still looks not like individual frames. It doesn't look like a motion of any kind. Now we know what we're looking at.
Max headroom thing.
Yeah, I get that reference.
Do you really get that reference?
I think I do.
Back in the 80s, Mitsubishi and NEC both had their digital VCRs. Mm-hmm. And what they would do is do a digital frame pause. So if you hit digital mode, what you got was that off of the videotape versus the slow schmear. Mm-hmm. It wasn't better, but it was a unique feature at the time. Are you going to die on me?
I might. Pardon me, everybody.
Do you realize I don't want to deal with the paperwork?
Well, there's less paperwork if I die.
No, there really isn't.
No? Okay, no. There's more? Okay.
If you're living, you can do your own paperwork.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Okay. He's talking about the 1920s.
For the hand crank.
If you don't want to see the pixel structure, move the seating further back or get a smaller TV. 1978 Night of Dreams at 60 frames per second. Now, is that an actual movie? Night of Dreams? Or is that just like, or is that a TV show? Or was that just like
I've never heard
demo
of
content? Ah, man. Good stuff. Anyways, okay.
Thank you, Michael.
So, what I do want to talk about, though, is how we talked about video games a little bit. I do want to talk about how with video games, it is okay to get much higher frame rates.
Yes, and we've played 120 here off of our Series X, which is when we had to update the television over the Samsung. That was very impressive. I mean, I actually, once you've seen it, it's hard to go back to standard gaming.
Symphony, it won't put the link in there because you're in the live chat. Shoot me a message. I'm sure I'll get it there. So with those, you get the higher frames per second. And actually, if you go and watch Linus Tech Tips, they did an entire episode on are higher frame rates better, or do they make you a better gamer, right? And the reality is yes, technically it does make you a better gamer because you get more up-to-date information quicker. Even the milliseconds that you have in between one frame to the next.
Well, the human brain's very fast.
Sure.
Assuming it's not mine.
Right. But getting that information just that much quicker means that you are quicker to respond to whatever it is.
Quicker, well, it's also your movements are more quickly translated to actions on the screen.
Right. Sybil Shepherd in Moonlighting was always shot through through diffusion filters. Ooh. Do you know that one?
Have you seen? You have not seen Moonlighting? It was Bruce Willis when he had hair, and Sybil Shepherd as a detective team that did not always get along.
I'm looking it up right now, really quick. Bruce Willis?
Yeah, with hair.
That is Bruce Willis.
Yeah. You doubted me, didn't you? I'm an old man. These things I remember.
These things you remember. Okay, so I guess the question really does come back to why don't we see more? I think that the combination
the number one is economics.
I think it's a combination. I think that the economics of it, of the fact that at 60 frames.
Where are we going to get it from? It's either going to be movies, streaming, or broadcast. Now, broadcast is all about economics because it costs them X amount to produce a TV show, and their only revenue is advertising and syndication. Movies, revenue is either streaming or people going into a theater. And to ship a 60 frame per second movie takes twice the hard drive of a 30 frame per second movie because it's literally twice the data. And you have to have gear that can play it back. And as we know, not every display is created equal.
Right.
Now, I had a call this morning. Guy was having an issue on a projector through an Apple TV. And I had him change the resolution to 29:9:7, and lockdown, all the problems disappeared. And he, had tried at 60 and at 30 in SDR. I was like, no, go to 29:9:7 HDR. And it locked it down because that's really what the display wants to see and can interpolate best.
Well, and a lot of that also comes down to just what the bandwidth of the device.
Well, the bandwidth variances between 29:9:7 and 30 is minimal. But the display's ability to lock into the clock.
Oh, so he was having problems at 30 frames per second. But as soon as you dropped it to 29.97,
9.7, it stabilized.
interesting.
And again, it's not a bandwidth issue. It's a lockdown. It's a clock lock.
No, because you're so close to bandwidth between those two anyways that there's not enough of a difference.
It's a clock lock.
Interesting.
So,
well, okay then.
and it will vary from display to display. Some displays are better at 30. So it's not, okay, you always want to go to here. That's the thing about what we do is there's not an always. Okay, let's try this and see what the results are. 9 times out of 10, this is what we're finding, but...
Yeah, these are best practices, but that doesn't mean that that it's going to work every single time.
You know, remember, failures in video, particularly in digital video, is a cumulative error. It's not a single item.
Ooh.
Yes?
Joey, that's a really good point. I haven't seen that yet. I do really want to watch it. Peter Jackson did that recreation of They Shall Not Grow Old. He did that documentation of it. He took old They Shall Not Grow Old. He took old war film.
Okay.
Like I think it was even like World War I. I don't think it was World War II. Took all the film, colorized it, and brought it up to 4K. So like rescanned it again, and then interpolated it to, I don't think it was it 60 frames per second on that? Yeah, it was World War I. Was it 60 or was it just the 24 or 30 frames per second on that one? I don't remember that, but the whole like shaky cam stuff that you know, just from the nature of the video, got rid of all that, you know, really kind of put it all solid. Really great stuff. Really great stuff.
I'll have to look that up. Is it on Amazon or Netflix or?
24 frames per second. 24 frames per second, that's what it was.
Well, it would have been an old school camera.
Yeah, but he brought it up to the 24 frames per second, or made it look like it was 24 frames. Like he didn't just, like, if it was slow.
24.
Well, like if it was slow, did he bring it up to that one? But with that, I think everybody, I really apologize for what's going on right now. We're still dealing with springtime in Florida. I really apologize. I think I might have to cut this one a little bit short today.
You losing your voice.
I'm losing my voice, and also I can't keep myself to stop coughing. So I think I might unfortunately have to cut this one short. But I think we covered pretty much what I wanted to say anyways.
Well, and I think this is one, because there's some interesting things for us to look up.
Yeah.
And I do want to circle back to, and I hate to say that because it's very corporate sounding, circle back to our original discussion on cones and rods, because all that plays into what we see for color depth, and HDR. And age affects this. What you're going to see on a piece of video, on a TV screen or a projector, will be entirely different than what I see.
Right.
On the other hand, I hear better than you do because of training. Even though your frequency range is greater, I can promise you all the years I had taking music lessons and selling hi-fi, I hear things in the music that you don't. Not that you don't hear them, you just don't recognize them.
Right. So,
wow.
Really quick, we actually have a tech support question.
Okay.
Symphony is saying he's got a JVC LX NZ3 connected directly to the Verizon cable box, 2-meter MHX cable, one of ours. Cable box will not go to 2160p, only 1080. I'm assuming it's a 4K cable box, only 1080. Over a 2-meter MHX cable. Is the JVC set to? That one should be.
Are you set to standard or are you set to HDR? Now, on the other side of it is, I honestly would try a 3 or 4 meter cable in there.
Enhanced mode. Check for enhanced mode on the JVC. Make sure that enhanced mode is turned off, because the cable boxes, in many cases, not all cases, or even in most cases anymore, but in many cases, the cable box is not like a 4K, it's a faux K.
Right. It's just
so, yeah. So check that.
And it may not have deep color, and if you have enhanced mode turned on, that can mess with the EDID.
Yeah, he's saying that the Roku is connected via the same port and cable, 2160 at 60 frames per second.
And it works perfect.
And it works fine.
Okay, yeah, then I would try a longer cable, because it can make a difference. And Adam's going to die on me. Also, when you're setting up your cable box, if you would give us a call on this, because I'd be curious that we have not, in Florida, at least Daytona, we don't have 4K cable box options. So there's a lot you guys are seeing that we can't see.
They're on
here.
their way. I think DirecTV has some that are in our area. Well, DirecTV does, I know for sure.
DirecTV does,
yeah, but not,
when we have one.
Yeah.
But cable doesn't yet. And cable boxes can do some interesting things to the signal because it's not full bandwidth, obviously. In fact, it's often not as good as streaming. So, on that happy note, I don't want to kill Adam.
I got to get off of here, everybody. I thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really, really sorry. Hopefully by next week or this Friday.
Friday, and you're on your own because remember, go ahead and switch me back.
And get you up
on
there.
Friday, I will be in Pompton Lakes at projectorscreen.com.
You need to share that again.
Here.
There you go.
Doing the ultra short throw showcase shootout with 16 ultra short throw projectors. So number one, I didn't know there was that many ultra short throw projectors. Number two, they are gaining popularity quickly because you do have the ability to get to a 120-inch screen in an area where typically in the past you couldn't go much beyond 75 or 80. So you can deal in higher ambient light.
Yep.
You can deal with not having to have the projector behind you. Now I did the short throw shootout in November with Robert Zahn in the TV shootouts. And we only had 3 there, Samsung, Hisense, and LG.
Now, I do believe you are also headed there with
a variety of tools.
a box of goodies, all of our fix-it
repair
tools. And, yeah, all of our repair
we
tools.
Don't know.
Yeah. Because we don't know what's going on. You want to bring it with you just in case. Yeah.
I'm trying to make things work, and you go prepared.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the reasons that we get invited to do these shootouts is because things happen, and the thing is that we're known as the fix-it tool people, and we've got we've known as the HDMI guys as well, and so that kind of puts us in a good spot.
And on top of that, I'm darn pretty.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. Again, I do apologize.
Boy, that closed it up in a hurry. Thanks.
I do apologize for everything going on, but with that, we'll see you next this Friday.
He'll see you this Friday.
You'll be in New York.
Pumpton, New York.
Yep.
New Jersey.
No, New Jersey.
Pumpton, New Jersey.
Pumpton Lakes, New Jersey. If you're up in that area,
please stop by. It's a freebie, and you can just walk in.
Find Brent. Tell him all your troubles and everything going on with whatever else, or just ask him questions.
Yeah. I'm happy to be there and talk.
Yeah. Or you can berate him too. That works also. I mean, that's it.
I'm back to.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Me?
You need to make sure that you're in familiar territory. I mean, if we let you out too much, and to where you have
people kind to me.
Yeah, then you'll never come back. And so we need to make sure that
you
it's
realize at this point
consistent.
I'm kind of like that whipped dog that hides in the corner.
Everybody, thank you so much for
I feel
joining
like
us today.
a Sally Struthers commercial.
Yeah, make sure.
No, who is it that does the whip the ballad singer that does the whip dog commercials? For ASPCA.
It's not Cher, is it?
No. Anyway.
Anyways,
I feel kind of like that, but. Couple of things. Number one, do not go less than 60 feet on any of your HD-based T extenders for your category cable. In fact, 70 is better.
Yep.
That's still a fairly high on the call list of problems. HD-based T wants at least 20 meters of a category cable between the transmit and the receive side. So if your AVR's there and your TV's there just above the fireplace, put a coil in there somewhere because you're going to need it.
But with that, everybody, thank you for joining us today. We will see you all this Friday and next week.
Hopefully he'll be alive.
Hopefully I'll have my voice at that time.
I can use Stuart. He'll be back.
Good luck getting yeah, okay, good luck. Good luck. As always, reboot early.
Reboot often.
Don't cut your wires too short.
Call tech support.
Turn off CEC.
And don't cut your wires less than 60 feet on your HD-based T extenders.
You gotta get a shorter one than that. I don't think that works at all.
I'm Brent.
I'm Adam.
See you on Friday.
We'll see you next time, everybody. Thanks.
And thank you.